Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video is going to be an update on the William Shatner discovery of his third wife drowned at the bottom of the swimming pool in his home, the William Shatner home in Studio City, which again is on a street with no sidewalks, okay? The 3600 block of Berry Drive, Berry Drive. You won't be surprised to know that this particular address where his third wife, who's 28 years younger than Bill Shatner, at the time of this incident, which you won't be surprised by the date, we all know by watching my Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger videos, that the date that will live in infamy is August 9th. August 9th, 1969 is when Abigail Folger, the daughter of Ines Mejia, who lives on Broadway in San Francisco near the Pelosi home, homes, plural, because the home where the hammer attack was is not the Pelosi residence. They don't live there. That's a CIA event home for poker games and styrofoam hammer attacks. It's a stunt studio. 2640 Broadway, not a Pelosi residence. Don't be fooled, people. They live on Pacific Avenue, about 5 blocks east. All right, so you got to make your way down to Divisadero Street if you want to find out where Paul Pelosi has 4 garages to house all of his sports cars that he has a hard time keeping on the highway. All right, so William Shatner allegedly owns a home in Studio City on or around 3600 Berry Drive, which is 2 miles from where the Frank Zappa home was. It's 2 miles from the Harry Houdini house. Again, no sidewalks on Laurel Canyon Boulevard. That's 2401 and 2402 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. No sidewalks. It's 2 miles approximately to the Natalie Wood gated house at 7708 Woodrow Wilson Drive, off of Woodrow Wilson Drive. That is where Cass Elliot moved into. Eventually, Dan Aykroyd and his model wife moved into. And that is at 7708 Woodrow Wilson Drive, off Woodrow Wilson Drive. Again, no sidewalks. And then eventually Beverly DeAngelis moved in there as the last resident that I know of. You know, she was in Vacation with Chevy Chase. So it's a home that's for CIA spook Hollywood actors or musical singers, artists, right? Film stars, television stars, or musical artists. That's the Laurel Canyon, no sidewalks. That's also true of Studio City, where Bill Shatner has his home, his provisional home. Don't know if he owns it or if it's a CIA home. But I'm going to play you the 9/11 tape, and then we're going to get into the poppycock stories that Bill Shatner has told, that the Los Angeles Police Department has told, which are not true. They're untrue stories. This is a parallel situation with the Paul Pelosi phony fake camera attack. This is standard operating procedure. They never tell the truth. You're never going to find the truth on the media mainstream because they're in the poppycock cover-up business on behalf of clandestine services. And make no mistake, Bill Shatner works for CIA, just like Leonard Nimoy did as well. They're social engineers like Sharon Tate, like Cass Elliot. They are social engineering icons. That way you build their celebrity status, and then when there's some national public policy decision, you interview them, you know, on a Dick Cavett show or on a Merv Griffin show or get a Harvey Levin, you know, TMZ interview, and then they give you their opinion as to what the social policy is. That's called Anthropology 101. Social engineering, anchored bias, manufacturing consent through celebrity status. That's why all those people work for the clandestine services, because that is their purpose. That's their primary purpose. You know, if they're going to be making a deal with the devil, you know, like the Eye of the Devil with Sharon Tate, if they're going to make a deal with the devil, then they're going to have to go along and obey, right? You have an oath of secrecy, and you have an oath of obedience. And Jack Nicholson told us in A Few Good Men, we follow orders or people die. And we know that's true because Art Linkletter lost 3 children, and we know that Paul Tate, his daughter Sharon, was bayoneted to death, and we know that Ines Mejia, a private banker living on Broadway, down the street from where this infamous styrofoam hammer attack happened. Her daughter was murdered by NATO forces in Benedict Canyon, Beverly Hills, 90210, 28 times with an M7 bayonet, same weapon used in the My Lai massacre 1 year previous, 18 months earlier, in March 1968. So we follow orders or people die, and it appears that some people were disobeying orders, and maybe that's what happened with Nerine Kidd. Perhaps she wasn't following orders, or perhaps William Shatner wasn't following orders, and they decided to whack his third wife, who's 28 years younger than him at the time. She was 40 years old, and William Shatner was 68 years old. So there's a 28-year age difference. All right, let me play you the tape. William Shatner had returned at 10 p.m. at night on a Monday night. This is August 9th, 1999. And he'd been out to dinner with his eldest of three daughters from his first marriage, who was to an actress, of course, Gloria Rand, who he was married to for 13 years. He had three daughters. Leslie, the eldest, born in 1958. Then we had Elizabeth, born in 1959, making her the same age as his third wife, Nerine. Nerine was born on July 13th, 1959. So she's the same age as Bill Shatner's second daughter. And then his youngest daughter is named Melanie, and I believe she was born in 1963. So you have a situation where Bill Shatner is married to a woman that's the same age as his daughters, right? He says he's in Orange County with his daughter Leslie for dinner. That's his alibi, because he went to visit Leslie. Don't know the city that Leslie lived in. Orange County is a large county. It's about 90 minutes to potentially, hour 45-minute drive, depending on where Leslie lives. If she's in Lake Forest or Irvine, or she's at Newport Beach or Laguna Beach, I don't know. If she's in Anaheim, I doubt it. Anaheim would be a quicker drive, but I have a feeling that Leslie probably lives more like Irvine or Aliso Viejo or Laguna Canyon, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, which is going to tack on another 20 minutes of drive time. So I don't really know. Anyway, and it's not disclosed. But so anyway, there's a number of phone calls that are made allegedly by William Shatner to his wife, Nerine, who's living in his home, even though he's filed for divorce, 9 months earlier, on October 21st, 1998, William Shatner filed for divorce, specifically requesting no alimony be granted, with a marriage that was barely 10 months old at the time. In other words, Bill Shatner filed for divorce before his first-year wedding anniversary. The wedding was on November 15th, 1997, and you see less than 1 year after that, he's filed for divorce in Los Angeles County, and so the gloves are off, okay? So any story you hear about, he's heartbroken, he can't believe his alcoholic wife, who spent 3 30-day trips to rehab, which is 90 days, that subtracts 3 months off this 18-month marriage. So maybe they were together 13 to 15 months. Who knows? Like I said, they were technically under divorce decree within 11 months of getting wed in Pasadena with Leonard Nimoy as best man. Leonard Nimoy kind of comes in and out of the story a few times, allegedly volunteering to drive Nerine to Alcoholics Anonymous, if you believe that. I don't believe anything I read in the media. All right, so Bill Shatner alleged at around 6 p.m. called and had a conversation with Nerine in Studio City at 3600 block of Berry Drive, whilst he was in the company of his daughter Leslie. So Leslie's his alibi that he was with her at 6 p.m. in Orange County, and then they were going to dinner, and everything was fine, and nobody was dead, if you believe that. It's very difficult to corroborate that because Leslie's his daughter, and I don't know what she or heard or may have heard. And so the next phone call comes in at 8 p.m. From Bill Shatner to Nerine, no answer. Then he calls again, presumably from his cell phone, at 8:45 to the Studio City home on Berry Drive. Again, no answer. So, seemingly concerned, he says goodbye to his daughter Leslie, jumps in his car, and drives home to Studio City. And he arrives home about 10 p.m. So that kind of makes sense to me because it's at least a 90-minute drive, and assuming he left at, if he left around 8:30 and he made the call from the car, he could be home at 10 p.m. Definitely, no doubt about it. So anyway, that's when he says he came home. And the call to 911, which I'm going to play now, came in a little after 10 p.m. And this is what the dispatcher at the Los Angeles County 911 switchboard heard. Okay? So I hope you can hear this. I'm going to play it now.
What's the problem? My wife's at the bottom of the pool. Okay, did you get her out of the pool yet, sir? No, not yet. I want you to take her out of the pool right now, sir. I'm going to take her. She's not the very deep end. If you can, grab something and get her out of the pool. Yes, City. Sir, yes. We're on the way. Get your wife out of the pool. But don't hang up the phone. Hello? Video on?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Okay. Do you want us to go?
Yeah, we do want you to go.
As
no problem.
Okay. I don't know if you could hear that. So, according to that 911 call, William Shatner has returned to his home on or around 10 p.m. on August 9th, Monday night, at 3600 Berry Drive. Again, no sidewalks. And he goes into his home, cannot find his wife. He goes to the backyard where the swimming pool cover has been removed. He claimed that the cover was covering the pool when he left to go to Orange County. Don't know what time he left, though. Anyway, and then in the darkness, he sees his wife, Nerine, naked at the bottom of the deep end of his swimming pool. Key word here is it's definitely not Nerine's house, right? So instead of diving into the pool and pulling his wife's body out of the pool to see if she's alive, he goes back in the house and he calls 911. And the dispatcher tells him to go rescue his wife from the pool and don't hang up. But I don't know if you could hear, but William Shatner hung up the phone and then presumably pulled his wife out of the pool, because when the first responders arrived, in the next 15 minutes, by 10:15 we had the police and fire department over at Bill Shatner's house. Nerine was naked on her back in a supine position with bruises on her arms and about her body and on her face. There were abrasions on her face. Her neck was broken. And she was dead with rigor mortis evidence kicking in. She was cold to the touch. Of course, she'd been at the bottom of the pool for hours. Don't know the time of death, and you know what? You're never going to find out the time of death, because when you murder somebody and toss them into a lake or a river or the ocean or a swimming pool, that's going to completely conceal the coroner's ability to ascertain time of death, because the body temperature is going to be cold. It's going to probably be like 55, 60 degrees. It's going to be all messed up. All right. In the case of Natalie Wood, it would be like 55 degrees. In the case of Nerine Elizabeth Kidd, she's in a swimming pool. Perhaps the temperature in that pool, I don't know if it was heated or not. We don't have that information. Maybe it was 80 degrees. I doubt it. I doubt it. It's probably more like 60. But anyway, like I said, 50 to 60 degree temperature of that body, you're never going to know anything. Then the police detective or the spokesperson for the police indicated that there's no evidence of foul play. Well, this is poppycock, because there has been no autopsy, no medical examination has been performed. I will read you what the Los Angeles Police Department typed up in a press release the next day, which would be Tuesday, August 10th, right? So let me find the... Okay, this is what the Los Angeles Police Department press release, well, it's dated Monday, August 23rd. So, we're out 2 weeks now. We're 2 weeks after the murder. And here's how it reads. Monday, August 23rd, 1999, which is exactly 30 years after the Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, NATO bayonet attack murders. On August 9th, 1999, at 10:15 p.m., North Hollywood patrol officers responded to a, quote, ambulance injury, end quote, radio call in the 3600 block of Berry Drive in Studio City. Upon arrival, the officers met with resident William Shatner, who had just returned home and discovered his wife, Nerine Shatner, in the bottom of the deep end of the swimming pool. He immediately called 911. Emergency, and then he dove into the pool to render aid. Los Angeles Fire Department rescue responded and pronounced Mrs. Shatner dead at 10:30 p.m. There was no evidence of foul play. Subsequent investigation revealed Mrs. Shatner was home alone for a short period of time and accidentally drowned while swimming in the family pool. The Los Angeles Coroner's Office is conducting an autopsy, and further inquiry should be directed to this office. All right. That's what they said. It's been 2 weeks since the murder, death, accidental. So they've ruled it accidental even though they haven't got the final report from the coroner's office. So right there, things are fishy. Pardon the pun. But hey, this is the world that we live in. Is Paul Pelosi, Poppycock, and William Shatner, Poppycock. Now, there's some other background information that I want to get into a little bit just to set the table. William Shatner, this was his third marriage. And she's 28 years younger than him. She was 38 years old on their wedding day on November 15th, 1997. He's 66 years old. She's 38 years old. 28-year gap. They were married a grand total of about 18 months. He filed for divorce 11 months in. On October 21st, 1998, William Shatner takes the initiative to file for divorce from Nerine Elizabeth Kidd. So right there, it's not a happy marriage. Number two is we come to find out that she spent 30-day stays in rehab for her alleged alcohol problem. So that's 90 days. That's 3 months. So whatever... Technically, they were married from November 15th, 1997 until August 9th, 1999. So it's about 20 months, but then you got to subtract the 3 months that she was in rehab. They couldn't spend time together then. That makes it a 17-month marriage. Then you got to put in the fact that he filed for divorce. So, they're probably separated for the last half of the marriage. So, it's an on-again, off-again situation. Yo-yo relationship. So perhaps they were together 6 months, maybe 7 months. All right, so it's not a big deal. William Shatner was married to Gloria Rand, who was an actress, of course, within the Hollywood cult. And they had 3 daughters, Leslie, the eldest, born in 1958, then Elizabeth, born in 1959, making her the same age as the murder victim, Nerine Elizabeth Kidd, third wife of William Shatner, same age as his second daughter. And then we have Melanie, who's a few years younger, born in, I think, 1963. So we have a situation here. We have a much older man. And then we have multiple anchored bias stories that there was no accidental drowning. However, the police report, one of the preliminary police reports indicated that there were numerous abrasions on the body, and the body had a broken neck and an alcohol level of 0.27, which is 3 times the limit, and Valium was found in her body, and she had been in the water a long time. So it's possible that she might have been drowned in that pool before William Shatner left to go visit Leslie in Orange County. William Shatner allegedly produced a receipt for his restaurant bill with his daughter, Leslie, which is probably a 90-minute drive away. And we have these phone calls that William Shatner made. A call at 6 p.m. where Nerine allegedly picked up and they had a conversation. I don't know if it was a staged conversation or if Leslie said hello. We don't know. Then William Shatner called at 8 p.m. to Nerine and no answer. And then he called at 8:45 at the Studio City address, no answer. And then he arrived at about 10 p.m. where instead of diving into the swimming pool and rescuing his wife, he called the Los Angeles 911 dispatch. Okay, then presumably he took the advice of the dispatcher to go get your wife out of the pool. So you make your own decision on whether that makes sense. Leonard Simon Nimoy was born in the West End of Boston in an Irish neighborhood. He's a Ukrainian Jewish fellow. William Shatner was also raised in a conservative Jewish family, and so he's Jewish, and he was out of Montreal, Canada, Quebec, and he's the same age as Leonard Nimoy. So Captain Kirk was born on March 21st, 1931. Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, was born March 26th, 1931. So Bill Shatner is 5 days older than Leonard Nimoy, who was his best man of his third marriage. After Gloria Rand, who was an actress within the Hollywood, establishment, he then married Marcy Lafferty, and he was married to her for 23 years. First, he was married to, Gloria Rand, had 3 daughters. That was a 13-year marriage. Then he was married to Marcy Lafferty, who was also in the Hollywood industry. And that was a 23-year marriage. Then he married this Nerine Elizabeth Kidd, who is 28 years younger than himself. And that marriage lasted technically, 18 months. Then he has a pause, hits the pause button, and then he marries his 4th wife, who's Elizabeth Martin. And she's 41 years old when they're married, and he's 70 years old. So he hasn't learned his lesson. He has not learned his lesson. She's 29 years younger than himself. And he divorces her. He files for divorce from her after 2 years of marriage. Wow. So I guess what I'm saying is that William Shatner is a 4-time loser. He's been married and divorced 3 times only because the wife that he was divorcing drowned in the swimming pool. All right, so some other little factoids here that bother me and trouble me is that the Studio City, 3600 Barry Drive address, location for the drowning of Nerine, is about 2.5 miles away from the Frank Zappa house at 2401 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. It's exact same distance, 2.5 miles to where Natalie Wood grew up and had Robert Wagner sleeping in her bed at age 18 in a gated compound at 7708 Woodrow Wilson Drive, which is a compound complex, just like Cielo Drive, just like the Playboy Mansion, just like the Walt Disney Carrollwood 354 Carrollwood Drive address is. And again, no sidewalks. There's no sidewalks in William Shatner's neighborhood. It's oak trees. It's on the same hillside that the Natalie Wood home is in, which was home to Cass Elliot, home to Dan Aykroyd and his model wife, and to Beverly DeAngelis from the Vacation film with Chevy Chase. And so none of there's very similar situations. All these are private locations that the public can't see into. You can't park. It's just stunningly similar. Anyway, I just wanted to update you on that Bill Shatner has a very sketchy alibi. In the Columbo episodes, he was the first Columbo where he was the murderer. He plays a television detective, Detective Lucerne, who's being extorted by his ex-wife due to the popularity of his television show, Detective Lucerne. So he creates an alibi by having his production assistant watch a baseball game with him in his home, where he drugs his assistant and then tapes the baseball game. Then he leaves his home, commits the murder at a liquor store with a hood, and then goes back home. And as his assistant is waking up, he resets the television play to the game where it left off, to where he nodded off, to simulate that that he didn't miss much of the game. He maybe missed a little bit. And they said, hey, you should just go sleep in the bedroom because, you've had too much to drink. But Columbo had to break that alibi because of the techno alibi of replaying the baseball game on the video recorder back when we used to have video tape machines. All right, so that was the first William Shatner alibi. That's a better alibi than I was out to dinner with my daughter, Leslie. Then the second William Shatner episode, he plays a radio talk show host with 10 million listeners. And he wants to murder a guy who wants his daughter to become an author and have her book published. She's already written a book, and he wants to get it published out of New York City. And William Shatner does not want his adopted daughter to get a book deal. So he wants to torpedo that, and he wants to get rid of this troublemaker who's encouraging his daughter. So he tells the troublemaker, who also is an employee of his, to call his home at a specific time. Meanwhile, the Bill Shatner character drives to the murder victim's home, parks a block away, walks to the home, gains entrance to the home in the back, and lies in wait until he hears the man call his home. He waits until his answering machine in his Malibu Hills home picks up. Then he walks into the room and shoots the victim. And that way, the murder is recorded on his answering machine at his Malibu home, where he is not present. He then leaves the house. He returns home, but as he's driving, he calls 911 to report what he heard on his telephone. Oh my God, I was having a conversation with so-and-so, and I heard gunshots. Police should go check it out. Do a wellness call, kind of like Paul Pelosi, right? So when they go over, they find out the guy's dead and was shot to death. But see, Bill Shatner has an alibi because presumably he's 10 miles away up in the mountains at his private residence on his landline when he's really using his mobile phone to call 911. That's how Columbo had to break that alibi. Was he realized that he called 911 as soon as he left his home, allegedly, to call it in, right? And then it turns out the cell phone coverage isn't good in the Malibu mountains. So he's like, hey, you couldn't call 911 when you're driving your car over to the crime scene because that doesn't work. So that's a poppycock alibi. Well, anyway, we got a poppycock alibi with the Nerine Kidd, too, because Bill Shatner made a series of phone calls. He made 3 phone calls. One, he alleged he made in the presence of his daughter, Leslie, who's completely compromised. She's not going to disagree with whatever her father says. So we don't know if that's a corroborated telephone call or not. And that's his alibi, that she was alive at 6 p.m. I'll bet she was dead at 6 p.m. I'll bet she was dead at 3 p.m. I'll bet she might have been dead at 9 a.m. By the way, she had a court date on Tuesday, August 10th, on her DUI, one of her DUI arrests. So, she didn't make that appointment, obviously. So then there's 2 more phone calls that William Shatner is making, presumably, which causes him to return home early because he doesn't get any answer on the phone. I'm just wondering why she's living in his home since he's already filed for divorce, and that's going forward. All right, well, anyway, you decide. I just wanted you to know that It's a very weak alibi as alibis go. The Columbo television series provides killers with superior alibis than these actors can produce on their own. Now, is this a clandestine murder? No, not necessarily, but it does involve people within the Hollywood cult who do work for the CIA. And remember, people, we follow orders or people die. And people are dying left and right in Hollywood. Almost every month, every week, people get whacked. So there's a lot of disobedience, I think, that goes on. But some of these murders could be, an accident. If you believe a really strong swimmer could break her neck and have bruises all over her body at age 40, and whether she has an alcohol problem or not, I don't know why she's naked in the pool at the bottom end of the pool for hours with bruises all over her body and a broken neck. That's the thing. She has a broken neck. So how do you explain that away, right? She dives into the curb of the pool and then drowns and sinks to the bottom of the pool. I'm calling poppycock on this, just like I called poppycock on a cigarette on a Naugahyde couch could cremate Jack Cassidy in front of his front door of his apartment. He wasn't on the leather couch. And it's a cremation, people. They needed dental records to identify him. A cigarette fire is not going to cremate somebody. It takes 2.5 hours to cremate somebody with an oven. So think of how much chemicals you'd require to cremate a person in an apartment and not burn down the neighbors next door. That's controlled. That's a controlled cremation situation that had to involve chemicals, not a cigarette. Thanks for listening. Hit the like and subscribe. Have a nice day.